Kenneth Jr., you can call me Ken. I lived here in Gadsden from 1957 till when I passed away in 2001. My wife and I raised 4 daughters here. The youngest was born here. And I was the owner of the domestic laundry and dry cleaning. Our main store was at 4th and 10th Avenue over by where Physicians Apothecary is now. We also had drop-offs there at Colonial Corner and over Country Club in Honolulu. And my father, he was in the dry cleaning business in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I grew up. And in 1942, after a year at the University of Tennessee, when I was 19 years old, my brother David and I enlisted in the Army Air Corps. We got wind that we were probably going to get drafted. Instead of getting drafted and maybe sleeping in a mud hole, we decided we'd join the Air Corps and hopefully have a nice bed to sleep in. My brother, he trained as a pilot, went on to fly over in Europe, and I went to Texas and trained as a bombardier. Then I was assigned over to Colorado Springs to a B-24 bombing unit, and we were training to go on missions in North Africa. Well, on our last training mission, before we were headed over to North Africa, we were coming back and 2 of our engines caught fire, and the pilot told us to jump, and I jumped, and my parachute harness got caught on a runway light and darn near ripped me in half, and I got sent to the hospital. Well, my crew went on to Libya for the Palesti oil field raids, known as Operation Tidal Wave, and their plane was actually shot down and none of them survived. So I was in the hospital for 7 weeks, and after I got out, I was assigned to the 393rd Squadron in Nebraska, assigned to a B-29 crew. And from there, we were assigned to Wendover, Utah, and selected as part of the 509th Composite for a top secret mission, the highest level of top secret mission at that time, or maybe near any time ever. They checked us out, they interviewed my family and friends, and went through high security, but we didn't even know what the mission was. However, I did have a brother-in-law that lived in Oak Ridge, Tennessee that was a scientist, and he and I could kind of put 2 and 2 together, so we had some idea of what we might be doing. When I was at Wendover, my oldest daughter, she was born, and all my crewmates, they kept telling me I should name her Bombsa, because that way her name would be Bombs Away. So I didn't do that. So from Wendover, we went on and we were stationed in the island of Tinian, as part of, near Japan, Tinian Island, and that's where our base was, to fly practice missions and drop 10,000-pound TNT bombs for what our ultimate mission was going to be. Well, the plane I was on was called the Straight Flush, and that's because the pilot, Buck Etherly, and I, we were big poker players, we were big gamblers. We'd have to fly these missions, we'd fly several hours there and drop the bomb and come back. So we made us a table so that when we hit altitude, we could just set it up and play cards while we were up in the air. So that's why we called ourselves the Straight Flush. We did these practice missions for about a year until August 6th of 1945. In the middle of the night, they called us up for a mission. And 1:37 in the morning, we flew in the exact path that would later be flown behind us by the Enola Gay. Our mission was to survey the primary spot, bomb drop, Hiroshima, and if it wasn't visible, we would move on to Kokura, Japan. Well, we go. Japan was all socked in with cloud cover, except for right there over Hiroshima, clear as day. And my job was to confirm the visibility, which I did, determine the coordinates of the aiming point, and we turned around and I gave the last order to the Enola Gay to drop the bomb on Japan. And that's what they did. We didn't know, again, what that mission was, and in fact, during the mission, the word got out, we were really the last to know what actually happened until we got back on base. But the one thing we did know is we were going to be the ones that were going to end that war, and that's what we did. After the war ended, 1946, I was assigned to the Bikini Island bomb test. There were 2 crews out of the Japan missions that were selected for the bomb test, and Buck and I were one of those crews. And on July 1st, they dropped a bomb. They took the Bikini Atoll, took all the people out. This is over in the Marshall Islands, filled it full of old boats and warships, and they put goats and measuring equipment, all kinds of stuff on it to measure what would happen when you drop an atomic bomb. Well, our plane, we didn't drop the bomb, but they outfitted our plane with these things called precipitrons, and our job was to fly our plane through the atomic cloud after they dropped it. Well, they dropped the bomb, and the cloud didn't really go the way they thought. So we flew around for 13 hours looking for that atomic cloud in the middle of the night. You couldn't even see the hand in front of your face. Well, we found it. I had a Geiger counter, and all of a sudden we were flying, and that Geiger counter went off and started shaking and hollering like you've never seen such a racket. And I told Buck, I said, let's get out of here. He turned around. We had flown right through that atomic cloud. We flew back to Kwajalein, and they stuck us at the end of the runway as far as they could from the rest of the base. They had us sit there for 14 hours. Finally, somebody came with a Jeep and set some food and water about 500 yards away. We had to go walk out and get our food and water. Then a little bit later, they came and dropped off a bus, and they had us drive our own bus back to the Army, or back to the Army hospital, where all the doctors and nurses were covered in masks and suits and what all, checking us out for 2 weeks. They never could determine anything conclusive. Although by the time I died, I'd had everything there was to have except pregnancy, so I always thought it had something to do with it, but the Army never said it did. Anyway, I left the service in 1947, although during the Korean War they called me back in 52. Problem was, I couldn't leave the United States because of my knowledge of atomic secrets. I couldn't even go to Mexico. So I was at Randolph Air Force Base down in Waco, Texas. The commanding officer didn't know what to do with me and finally said, hey, you play golf? I said, yeah, I play par golf. He said, well, you can be our golf pro. So I taught all the officers' wives how to play golf, and that's how I fought the Korean War. Well, I'm proud of my service to my country, and even though hundreds of thousands of people died in Japan, I firmly believe that many more hundreds of thousands, if not millions, would have died had that war continued and we would have had to invade Japan. I don't think I did anything special or heroic. As far as I look at it, I had a job and it just happened to turn out to be kind of famous. Just the way I look at it.